The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestone streets of Manchester as Prince William and Princess Kate stepped out of their royal car. They had come to visit the Children's Hospital, a routine engagement that filled their calendar like many others. The couple smiled and waved at the small crowd that had gathered, their faces showing the practiced warmth that came with years of public service. Inside the hospital corridors, the familiar smell of disinfectant mixed with the cheerful decorations that staff had put up to welcome the royal visitors. Nurses hurried about their duties while doctors prepared for the royal tour. Everything seemed perfectly normal until they reached the pediatric wing, where something unexpected was about to unfold. In room 412, 8-year-old Emma Thompson lay in her hospital bed, her small frame almost lost among the white sheets and medical equipment. She had been battling leukemia for 2 years, and today marked what her parents feared might be one of their last visits together. Emma's mother, Sarah, sat beside the bed, holding her daughter's hand, while her father, David, stood by the window trying to hide his tears. The hospital staff had mentioned that the royal couple would be visiting, but Emma's parents never imagined they would stop by their room. When the door gently opened and Prince William's familiar face appeared, followed by Princess Kate's warm smile, Sarah gasped and quickly stood up. "Please, don't get up," Kate said softly, moving toward the bed. "We're here to see Emma, aren't we, William?" The prince nodded, his expression immediately softening as he saw the young girl. Emma's eyes widened with wonder, not quite believing that real-life royalty was standing in her room. She had watched their wedding on television years ago and had always dreamed of meeting a real princess. "Hello, Emma," Kate said, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. "I heard you're very brave. Is that true?" Emma managed a small smile and nodded. Her voice was weak, but her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Are you really a princess?" she whispered. "I am," Kate replied. "But you know what? I think you're much braver than any princess in any fairy tale I've ever heard." Prince William pulled up a chair next to David, and the two fathers began talking quietly. William asked about Emma's treatment, her favorite activities, and how the family was coping. There was something genuine in his voice that caught David off guard. This wasn't the formal, distant royal he had expected. Meanwhile, Kate noticed Emma's art supplies scattered on the bedside table. Colored pencils, sketch pads, and half-finished drawings covered every available surface. "You're an artist," Kate observed, picking up one of Emma's drawings. It showed a castle with a princess waving from a tower. "I draw when I can't sleep," Emma explained. "The nurses say it helps me feel better." Kate studied the drawing more carefully. "This is beautiful, Emma. You know, I love art too. Would you mind if I tried drawing something with you?" Emma's face lit up brighter than it had in months. She pushed herself up in bed, suddenly more animated than her parents had seen her in weeks. "Really? You want to draw with me?" What happened next surprised everyone in the room. Instead of the brief, polite visit that everyone expected, Kate spent the next hour sitting with Emma, drawing pictures and talking about everything from favorite colors to dreams about the future. Prince William joined in, his large hands awkwardly holding the colored pencils as he attempted to draw what he claimed was a horse, but looked more like a four-legged cloud. "That's definitely not a horse," Emma giggled, her laughter filling the room with a sound her parents hadn't heard in far too long. "You're absolutely right," William laughed back. "I think it's more like a magical creature that nobody has discovered yet." The royal security team waited patiently in the hallway, knowing their schedule was running behind. Other hospital officials checked their watches nervously, aware that important meetings were being delayed. But neither Prince William nor Princess Kate showed any sign of wanting to leave. Sarah and David watched in amazement as their daughter, who had been so weak and sad just hours before, transformed before their eyes. Emma was sitting up straight, laughing, and engaging with an energy they thought they had lost forever. "Tell me about your dreams, Emma," Kate said gently, setting down her colored pencil. What do you want to do when you get out of here? Emma thought for a moment, her small fingers tracing the edge of her drawing. I want to have a tea party in a real garden, she said quietly, with flowers and butterflies and maybe some cake. Kate exchanged a meaningful glance with William. Something passed between them in that moment, a silent communication that spoke of shared understanding and purpose. That sounds like a wonderful dream, Kate said, taking Emma's hand. You know what? I think dreams like that are very important. They're worth fighting for. As the afternoon wore on, nurses began to gather outside Emma's room. Word had spread throughout the hospital that the royal couple was spending an extraordinary amount of time with one patient. Some staff members worried about the disruption to the schedule, but Dr. Patricia Mills, the head of pediatric oncology, watched through the doorway with tears in her eyes. In 30 years of medicine, she whispered to a colleague, I've never seen anything like this. Look at that little girl. She's come alive. Indeed, Emma seemed transformed. She was showing the royal couple her entire collection of drawings, explaining each one with enthusiasm. She told them about her favorite nurse, her cat named Whiskers, who was waiting at home, and her best friend Lucy, who visited every weekend. When a nurse finally approached to remind everyone that Emma needed her afternoon medication, the mood in the room shifted. Reality crept back in, bringing with it the weight of Emma's illness and uncertain future. We should let you rest, William said gently, standing up from his chair. Emma's face fell slightly, but she nodded bravely. Thank you for visiting me, she said politely. This was the best day ever. Kate leaned over and kissed Emma's forehead softly. Emma, I want you to remember something. You are one of the strongest, most inspiring people I have ever met. Never forget that. As they prepared to leave, Kate turned to Sarah and David. Would it be all right if we stayed in touch? I'd love to know how Emma is doing. Both parents were too emotional to speak properly, but they managed to nod their agreement. This wasn't the formal, distant interaction they had expected from royalty. This felt real, personal, and deeply meaningful. Before leaving the room, Prince William knelt beside Emma's bed one more time. Emma, I want to make you a promise. Princess Kate and I are going to remember this day forever, and we're going to remember you. You've taught us something very important about courage. Emma smiled sleepily, the excitement and emotion of the day finally catching up with her. What did I teach you? She asked softly. You taught us that real bravery isn't about not being scared, William replied. It's about finding joy and kindness, even when things are difficult. That's something very special. As the royal couple left the hospital that day, something had fundamentally changed. The routine visit had become something much more significant, not just for Emma and her family, but for William and Kate themselves. They rode in silence back to Kensington Palace, both lost in thought about the remarkable little girl they had met. That evening, as Emma drifted off to sleep, surrounded by the drawings they had created together, she clutched the colored pencil that Princess Kate had used. Her parents sat beside her bed, marveling at the transformation they had witnessed. She was different today, Sarah whispered to David. Did you see how alive she was? David nodded, wiping away a tear. I haven't seen her that happy since before she got sick. There was something magical about what happened in that room. Neither of them could have imagined that this was just the beginning of something that would touch not only their lives, but the hearts of an entire nation. The seeds of an extraordinary act of kindness had been planted, and they were about to grow into something beautiful beyond anyone's wildest dreams. 3 weeks had passed since the royal visit to the Manchester Children's Hospital, but Emma Thompson's condition had taken a turn for the worse. The little girl who had been so full of life and laughter during the prince and princess's visit now spent most of her days sleeping. Her parents maintained their vigil beside her bed, holding on to hope while preparing their hearts for the possibility of goodbye. Dr. Patricia Mills had delivered the difficult news that morning. Emma's body was no longer responding to treatment as they had hoped. While they would continue to keep her comfortable and never give up entirely, the family needed to understand that time had become precious in a way that no one wanted to acknowledge. Sarah Thompson sat by the window of Emma's hospital room, staring out at the gray Manchester sky. Rain droplets traced irregular paths down the glass, mirroring the tears that had become her constant companion. David paced the small room quietly, his phone in his hand as he tried to figure out how to tell their extended family about the latest developments. "Mummy?" Emma's weak voice called from the bed. Sarah immediately moved to her daughter's side, taking the small, pale hand in hers. "I'm here, sweetheart. What do you need?" "I was dreaming about the tea party again," Emma whispered, her eyes still closed. "The one with the flowers and butterflies. Princess Kate was there and she was wearing a beautiful blue dress." Sarah's heart ached as she brushed a strand of hair from Emma's forehead. The dream about the garden tea party had become Emma's most treasured thought, something she mentioned almost every day since the royal visit. It seemed to give her comfort when the pain became too much to bear. "That sounds like a lovely dream," Sarah managed to say, her voice catching slightly. What Sarah didn't know was that at that very moment, 40 miles away in London, Princess Kate was sitting in her private office at Kensington Palace, with a very different kind of conversation taking place. She had been thinking about Emma constantly since their visit, and true to her word, she had been receiving regular updates about the little girl's condition from the hospital. The news that morning had been heartbreaking. Dr. Mills had called personally to let the princess know that Emma's time was running shorter than anyone had hoped. The conversation had left Kate staring out her own window, her heart heavy with the unfairness of a world where children like Emma had to face such enormous battles. "Your Royal Highness," her private secretary, James, knocked gently on the door. "Prince William is here to see you." William entered the room and immediately saw the sadness in his wife's eyes. He had received the same call about Emma's condition, and he knew exactly what Kate was thinking. "We have to do something," Kate said without preamble. "That little girl's dream about the tea party. We can't let her leave this world without experiencing something beautiful like that." William sat down across from his wife, his expression serious but understanding. "What are you thinking?" Kate stood up and began pacing, her mind already working through possibilities. "She's too sick to travel far, but what if we brought the tea party to her? What if we created something magical right there in the hospital?" "The hospital doesn't exactly have gardens," William pointed out gently, though his tone suggested he was already invested in making Kate's idea work. "Then we create one," Kate replied firmly. "We transform that space into everything Emma has been dreaming about. Flowers, butterflies, beautiful decorations, proper tea and cake. We make it real." William smiled, recognizing the determination in his wife's voice that had drawn him to her years ago. When Kate decided to make something happen, obstacles had a way of disappearing. "The staff will think we're crazy," he said, but his eyes were already sparkling with the same excitement Kate felt. "Let them," Kate laughed, her sadness beginning to transform into purposeful energy. "Sometimes the most important things we do are the ones that seem a little crazy to everyone else." Within hours, Kensington Palace had become a hub of activity unlike anything the staff had ever seen. Kate had assembled what she jokingly called her Tea Party Task Force, a group of florists, decorators, caterers, and logistics coordinators who were all committed to creating something extraordinary. The challenge was enormous. They had to transform a sterile hospital corridor and waiting area into a magical garden setting, and they had to do it without disrupting the medical care that other patients needed. Moreover, they had to do it quickly, as Emma's condition meant that timing was critical. Kate personally called Emma's parents that evening. When Sarah answered the phone and heard the familiar voice saying, "Hello, this is Kate," she thought someone was playing a cruel joke. "I'm sorry. This is Kate who?" Sarah asked, confusion evident in her voice. "This is Princess Kate," came the gentle reply. "I've been thinking about Emma every day since we met, and I wanted to talk to you about something special." Sarah nearly dropped the phone. She gestured frantically to David, who rushed over to listen as Kate explained her idea for the tea party. "We want to create Emma's dream tea party right there in the hospital," Kate explained. "A proper garden party with everything she mentioned: flowers, butterflies, beautiful decorations, and the most delicious tea and cakes we can find. Would that be something Emma might enjoy?" Sarah began crying so hard she couldn't speak. David took the phone and somehow managed to express their overwhelming gratitude and excitement. The idea seemed impossible, like something out of a fairy tale, but if anyone could make the impossible happen, surely it would be royalty. "There's one more thing," Kate added before ending the call. "We'd like this to be Emma's party, but we think she might enjoy sharing it with some of the other children in the hospital too. Would that be all right?" The next morning, the hospital became a scene of controlled chaos. Trucks arrived before dawn, unloading flowers, decorations, furniture, and supplies. Kate arrived early, wearing jeans and a sweater, ready to work alongside the team of professionals she had assembled. Dr. Mills watched in amazement as the corridor outside the pediatric wing was transformed. Artificial grass covered the floors, potted flowers and small trees created the illusion of a garden, and twinkling lights were strung from the ceiling. Tables with beautiful white linens were arranged throughout the space, and butterfly decorations seemed to dance in the air wherever anyone looked. The most remarkable part was watching Princess Kate herself. She wasn't supervising from a distance. She was on her hands and knees arranging flowers, hanging decorations, and testing every detail to make sure it was perfect. Her security team tried to maintain their professional composure while watching the future Queen of England crawl under tables to adjust tablecloths. "Has she lost her mind?" one hospital administrator whispered to another. Dr. Mills overheard and turned to face them. "That woman is creating magic for a dying child," she said firmly. "If that's madness, then we need more of it in this world." As the transformation continued, word began to spread throughout the hospital. Nurses found excuses to walk past the pediatric wing, and doctors lingered in the corridors longer than necessary. Everyone wanted to see what was happening, and more importantly, everyone wanted to be part of it. Kate had thought of everything. There were special seating arrangements for children who couldn't leave their beds, battery-powered warmers to keep the tea and food at perfect temperatures, and even a small area where children could make their own flower arrangements to take back to their rooms. Prince William arrived in the afternoon, immediately rolling up his sleeves to help with the final preparations. Together, he and Kate tested every chair, tasted every cake, and made sure that every detail was exactly right. "Do you think Emma will like it?" Kate asked, standing back to survey their creation. William looked around at the magical garden they had created in the middle of a hospital corridor. Flowers bloomed everywhere, butterflies seemed to dance in the air, and tables were set with the finest china and most beautiful cakes imaginable. "Kate," he said softly, "I think we've just created the most beautiful tea party in the history of the world." As evening approached and the final touches were put in place, Kate made one last call to Emma's parents. "Everything is ready," she said simply. "Tomorrow afternoon, Emma will have her tea party." That night, Emma slept more peacefully than she had in weeks, unaware that in just a few hours, her most cherished dream was about to become reality in a way that would touch the hearts of everyone who witnessed it. The afternoon of Emma's tea party dawned crisp and clear, with sunlight streaming through the hospital windows in a way that seemed almost magical. Throughout the morning, Excitement had been building among the hospital staff and patients who knew something extraordinary was about to happen. Emma had been carefully prepared by her medical team. Though she was weak, the prospect of her special tea party had given her a burst of energy that surprised everyone. Her mother had helped her into her favorite dress, a soft pink one with tiny flowers that she had worn to her cousin's wedding the year before when she was still healthy and strong. "Am I really going to have tea with Princess Kate?" Emma asked for the 10th time that morning, her eyes bright with anticipation. "Yes, sweetheart," Sarah replied, fighting back tears of both joy and sadness. "The most beautiful tea party anyone could ever imagine." When the doors to the transformed corridor opened for the first time, even the adults gasped in wonder. The sterile hospital hallway had been completely transformed into an enchanted garden. Flowers bloomed in every corner. Butterfly decorations seemed to flutter in gentle breezes created by hidden fans, and soft classical music played from speakers cleverly hidden among the foliage. Tables of different heights had been arranged to accommodate children in wheelchairs, those with medical equipment, and others who needed special seating. Each table was set with delicate china, crystal glasses, and silverware that sparkled in the gentle lighting. The centerpieces were low arrangements of fresh flowers that smelled like spring and hope. But the most magical sight was Princess Kate herself, wearing a flowing blue dress that matched the one from Emma's dreams. She stood at the entrance to the garden, greeting each child personally as they arrived. Her smile was radiant, and her genuine joy at seeing each young face was unmistakable. When Emma's wheelchair was pushed into the transformed space, she stopped breathing for a moment. Her small hands flew to her mouth, and tears of pure wonder filled her eyes. "It's real," she whispered. "It's exactly like my dream, but even more beautiful." Kate immediately moved to Emma's side, kneeling down so they were at eye level. "Hello, Emma. Welcome to your tea party." Emma reached out tentatively to touch Kate's dress, as if to make sure she wasn't still dreaming. "You wore the blue dress, just like in my dream." "Of course I did," Kate smiled. "A princess always keeps her promises." Prince William appeared beside them, wearing a navy suit but with a playful expression that matched the magical atmosphere. "Emma, I've been practicing my tea party manners all week. I hope I don't embarrass myself." Emma giggled, the sound ringing like silver bells through the garden corridor. "I can teach you the proper way to hold your teacup if you want." As more children arrived, the garden came alive with laughter and wonder. There were 12 young patients in total, ranging in age from 4 to 14, all dealing with serious illnesses, but all temporarily transported to a place where magic was real and dreams could come true. The menu had been carefully planned with the hospital's nutritionists to ensure that every child could enjoy something special, regardless of their dietary restrictions. There were delicate finger sandwiches, fresh scones with jam and cream, colorful macarons, and a selection of teas and fruit juices served in proper teacups and glasses. But the food, wonderful as it was, became secondary to the pure joy of the experience. Prince William had indeed been practicing his tea party manners, and he performed an elaborate and slightly ridiculous demonstration of the proper way to extend one's pinky finger while sipping tea. The children laughed until their sides hurt, especially when he pretended to be confused about which fork to use for which cake. Princess Kate moved from table to table, sitting with each child, learning their names, asking about their interests, and making each one feel like the most important person in the room. She admired drawings, listened to stories about pets and siblings, and shared gentle jokes that made everyone feel included. At Emma's table, something even more special was happening. Emma had been quiet for a few minutes, overwhelmed by the beauty around her, when she suddenly looked up at Princess Kate with an expression of mature wisdom that seemed far beyond her 8 years. "Princess Kate," she said softly, "I need to tell you something important." Kate leaned in closer, giving Emma her complete attention. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I know I'm very sick," Emma said, her voice steady despite her young age. "And I know that I might not get better. But this tea party, being here with you and Prince William and all my new friends, this is the most happy I've ever been in my whole life." The adults at nearby tables fell silent, not intentionally eavesdropping, but unable to help overhearing Emma's profound words. Kate's eyes filled with tears, but she maintained her composure, understanding that Emma needed her to be strong. "Emma," Kate said gently, "do you know what I think? I think you are the bravest, most special person I have ever met. And I think that this happiness you're feeling right now, this is something that will stay with everyone here forever." Emma nodded seriously. "Will you remember this tea party when I'm not here anymore?" Kate took Emma's small hands in hers. "Emma, I will remember this day for the rest of my life. Not just because it was beautiful, but because you taught me something very important about what it means to be truly brave and kind." Prince William had been listening to this exchange, and he quietly approached their table. "Emma, can I tell you a secret?" Emma's eyes widened with curiosity. "Yes, please." "Princess Kate and we meet a lot of people in our job, presidents and prime ministers and famous people from all over the world. But you know what? None of them have impressed us as much as you have. You have taught us more about courage and joy in one afternoon than anyone else has in years." As the tea party continued, something remarkable began happening throughout the hospital. Word of the magical transformation had spread beyond the pediatric wing. Doctors and nurses found reasons to walk past the garden corridor, and many stopped to watch through the windows at the scene unfolding inside. Dr. Patricia Mills stood at the observation window with tears streaming down her face. In 30 years of pediatric medicine, she had seen children face unimaginable challenges with incredible bravery, but she had never witnessed anything like the pure joy radiating from the garden party. "Look at them," she whispered to a colleague. "Look at how alive they all are." It was true. Every child in that transformed corridor seemed to glow with happiness. The magic of the setting, combined with the genuine warmth and attention from the royal couple, had created something that transcended the ordinary boundaries of a hospital visit. Emma had found the strength to stand up from her wheelchair and was walking slowly between the tables, introducing her new friends to each other and making sure everyone felt included. Her face was flushed with excitement and joy, and for these precious hours, her illness seemed to retreat into the background. As the afternoon progressed, Kate noticed that several of the children were beginning to tire. Rather than ending the party abruptly, she and William began transitioning to quieter activities. They gathered all the children into a circle for story time, with Kate reading from a beautiful illustrated book about a princess who learned that true magic came not from spells or potions, but from kindness and love. When the story ended, Emma raised her hand shyly. "Princess Kate, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Emma. You can ask me anything." "When you become queen someday, will you remember to be kind to children who are scared or sick?" Kate's voice was thick with emotion when she replied, "Emma, I promise you that every single day for the rest of my life, I will try to bring a little bit of the magic we created here today to other children who need it. That's a promise from my heart to yours." As the tea party began to wind down, each child was given a special gift bag containing mementos of the day, a pressed flower from the garden decorations, a small photograph of themselves with the royal couple, and a personalized note from Princess Kate thanking them for making the day so special. But the most precious gift was something that couldn't be wrapped or taken home. It was the memory of an afternoon when magic was real, when dreams came true, and when two of the most famous people in the world treated a group of sick children like the most important people on earth. As Emma was wheeled back to her room that evening, She clutched her mementos tightly and looked up at her parents with eyes full of peace and contentment. "Mummy," she said softly, "that was the most perfect day of my whole life. I'm not scared anymore." 3 days later, Emma Thompson passed away peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by her family and holding the pressed flower from her magical tea party. Her parents, though devastated by their loss, found comfort in knowing that their daughter's last days had been filled with joy and wonder beyond anything they could have imagined. But Emma's story didn't end there. Within hours of the news reaching them, Prince William and Princess Kate arrived at the hospital to comfort Emma's parents and to attend a small memorial service with the hospital staff. Their genuine grief and love for Emma touched everyone who witnessed it. Dr. Mills later said, "I realized that day that I had witnessed something much more significant than a kind gesture. I had seen what happens when people in positions of great privilege choose to use their power not for themselves, but to create pure joy for others." News of Emma's tea party and her peaceful passing began to spread throughout the country. Initially, the palace had intended to keep the event private, but Emma's parents requested that the story be shared, believing that their daughter's joy and the royal couple's kindness could inspire others. When the story broke in the media, the response was overwhelming. Letters poured into Kensington Palace from around the world, not asking for anything, but simply expressing gratitude for the reminder that kindness and compassion still existed at the highest levels of society. The Emma effect, as it came to be known, sparked a movement of kindness throughout the United Kingdom. Hospitals reported an increase in volunteers. Community groups organized special events for sick children. Schools began teaching Emma's story as an example of how small acts of love can create enormous impact. Princess Kate established the Emma Thompson Foundation for Pediatric Care, ensuring that magical moments like Emma's tea party could be created for other children facing serious illnesses. Prince William became a patron of several children's charities, often referencing Emma's courage and wisdom in his speeches. But perhaps most importantly, the story of Emma's tea party reminded an entire nation that true nobility comes not from titles or wealth, but from the willingness to see the extraordinary worth in every person, especially those who are most vulnerable. Years later, when asked about the most meaningful moment of their royal service, both Prince William and Princess Kate would answer without hesitation. An afternoon tea party with a brave little girl who taught them that the greatest magic in the world is the magic we create for each other through love, kindness, and the courage to make someone else's dreams come true. Emma's legacy lived on, not just in the foundation that bore her name or in the countless acts of kindness her story inspired, but in the hearts of everyone who learned that sometimes the most powerful thing royalty can do is simply sit down for tea with a child and treat them like they are the most important person in the world.